Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Zeromaz channel. I'm Sinnfullduck, and I'm here with Zeromaz, and we're going to go through his new Stamina Necromancer build here a little bit, talk a bit about how it plays, what kind of gear he's using, CP. We're going to go through the whole thing here, so buckle up and enjoy the ride. So let's go ahead and dive right in here with the first question. What kind of playstyle is this build? What are you trying to go for here? Melee, range?
It's a range build. I'm using bow and destro staff, the ice staff, but a lot of the gear that I use requires you to be up close and personal. For example, my monster set, I'm using Stone Husk, which is a tether. You know, obviously there's a cutoff range to it, but whether you're ranged or melee, I feel like there's so many gap closers out there and things that, you know, speed increases and stuff like that, that most of the time when you're going to be fighting somebody, they're going to be up close anyway.
Very true, very true. So, all right, so I think you'd already said you're doing bow destro staff. What kind of led you into using the staff? And assuming that you're using what I think you're using, why don't you tell us what those weapons are you've got on?
Sure. On the back bar, I have the Vadishran staff. Awesome tether, great ability. You get the major breach attached to a skill that doesn't cost you anything. And previously I was using sword and board just for the major and minor breach. But now that physical damage can proc minor breach, I didn't really need that as much. So I put on the destro staff on the back bar, and on the front bar I'm using the Black Rose prison bow.
All right, so we know, I'm sure if you've been around the game at all, you know the Vadishran staff and its lovely little rainbow of death effect. But for anybody who might not know, what does the Black Rose bow do for you?
Yeah, basically when you cast, I forget the name of the skill, but it's a debuff that gives the enemy major breach, and it puts a tether between you and your target, and it damages them every second. It rotates through the different elements, the fire, shock, and frost. And the Black Rose bow puts a pretty potent dot on the target. Depending on how far away you are from the target dictates how long that dot is going to be on the target. And you know, usually it's one of the strongest dots that I have in this build.
Okay, so and that gets applied with, was it acid spray?
No, it's the bow knockback.
All right, so we already heard you've got Black Rose bow, we've got the Vadishran staff. You talked a little bit about your monster set, but do you want to dive into that a little bit more and tell us kind of what that's doing for you?
Sure. I'm using Stone Husk, and I think this is a very underrated set. I don't know whether it's because it's a tether and people don't seem to like that, but ironically people seem to like the Vadishran and Zons. But with Stone Husk, the range at which the tether falls off is greater than Zon, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone in PvP use Stone Husk. At the end of the tether, it gives you some weapon damage, which is always nice. The damage is really good, and it's kind of subtle. Like the visual effect is subtle, so I can see people not actually noticing that the tether is on them. Obviously, you know, if they did, a lot of times they would back off and try and break the tether, but I don't really see that very much with Stone Husk.
Yeah, it's really hard to notice, like when you've got all the different effects going on for all the skills that happen during any given fight. Stone Husk is really hard to notice. All right, so with everything we've already gone through here, I'm assuming you're running a single 5-piece. So which one you got on?
Yes, I am. I'm using a craftable set, Nocturnal's Favor, and it's I don't really see anybody using this, but I started using it, I think probably about a year ago on my Nightblade, and it is very powerful. Basically gives you vigor when you dodge roll an attack, and because it's so nice, I don't need to have vigor on my bar anymore, and I don't have to waste that global cooldown casting a heal, waste that stamina casting a heal. It's just all passive.
Yeah, you just get that giant heal just for doing something you were already going to do, even if you had vigor on there, which is just roll dodging.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of the idea for this build, is having everything play a multi-role. So whether it's, Stone Husk buffing me, doing damage to the target, buffing me with the weapon damage, of course. My Nocturnal's Favored, dodge rolling, healing me, saving me from using a cooldown, saving me from using stamina. It's just basically all kind of passive.
Well, with, playing in Imperial City as much as we do, and getting into battlegrounds and stuff, it is pretty important to try and keep things as efficient as possible, and having each thing that you do, each button press, accomplish multiple tasks. Like a dodge roll, you avoid damage and you cast that big heal from your set. Having that kind of interaction that keeps things that efficient is really, really powerful, and something that I think a lot of people don't really focus on too much in PvP. They just kind of go for the big stat numbers most of the time, and they're probably missing out a little bit on some of the cool things they can do.
Sure, and especially like you know as well as I do, when you're outnumbered, if it's you and I down there and there's 6 people or 8 people that roll out, having multi-purpose abilities and sets is very valuable.
Yeah, and it's not even like, from what you've talked about in this particular setup, it's not even just throw as many procs in there to hurt people as possible. It's like each thing has its specific purpose and a reason why it's there, and I really always enjoy your builds for that, because if you look at most builds that you see out there, it's always just, let me do the most damage as possible, or let me be as tanky as possible. Like, there's not really a good balance in most people's builds, and you've got a lot of damage, a lot of efficiency, a lot of defense. You kind of have the whole thing going there. So I really enjoy that in your builds.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. And I'm really enjoying the new changes to medium too. And there's no drawbacks to it. It's really well balanced. Oh man. I mean, medium armor is in such a good spot. And on that note, although I am in medium armor, when I am running my reinforced impen traits, I'm at, I want to say like 32,000 armor. So I'm almost capped.
32,000 in medium.
Yes, sir. That's due to, I got protective traits on my jewelry, defending on both of my weapons. I'm a Nord right now as well, which they got a little bit of a nerf last update. Last update I was sitting capped, or over capped, but it's okay. I'm still pretty much at the top there, and I haven't really noticed that big of a difference between such a minimal number of armor.
Okay, so I think we've gone through your gear pretty sufficiently. I was gonna dive into the jewelry a little bit, but you kind of hit on that already with your traits there for the jewelry.
Yeah, the jewelry pieces, I just use 2-piece agility, 3-piece agility, or you can throw, Malakath in there. You can throw Ring of the Wild Hunt. And what's the torque? Whatever. It doesn't matter.
And then for this particular setup, do you try and keep your weapon damage enchants on the jewelry so you can keep pumping out damage, or do you go with more of a sustain-oriented setup for this?
Typically, I would run all weapon damage, but since I think I mentioned this before, this is a new build for me, so I'm still trying to dial it in and figure out how to play it. It's completely different than my last setup, as you know. So
Oh, yeah.
I have two pieces of stam regen, or two stam regen glyphs in there, and one weapon damage glyph for now until I get comfortable with it. And the same idea behind Nocturnal's Favor. Until I get used to how to play this, that'll be on my guy. And once I do feel comfortable, I'll probably throw something in there that, you know, gives me some damage or some other kind of utility.
Nice. Yeah, I know we had talked about how you're using Nocturnal's Favor right now just to kind of get a feel for the play style of this one, but as far as what other sets you're thinking of to replace that with later, I don't know if you want to get into that now or if you want to save that for another video down the road once we kind of get to the point where you're ready for that. But
Oh, no, it's no big deal. Savage Werewolf. I'm a huge fan of that set. Yeah, sure, the proc number is low, and everyone's using Savara's Scale and Unleash and all that stuff, but I feel like one of the best proc sets in the game is Savage Werewolf. Always has been, baby. It doesn't matter if somebody cleanses it, you can reapply it right away, and with a bow or a Destro staff or even a Resto staff, anything with ranged, you can apply it so easily, and it's just a constant 1500 damage every second.
all right, so let's take a minute now, and I want to dive into your skills because I know you're using some skills that not a lot of people would want to use. I haven't really seen many people using them in PvP, but in particular, I want to talk about, are there any specific combinations of skills, anything on your bar that you've put there because they synergize together or synergize well with different sets that you've got going, or just any kind of skill synergies that you like in there?
I'm using the Intensive Mender pet. Everyone uses the other morph. Gives you like 10% damage reduction, I believe. It costs twice as much as this, or I should say this morph costs 50% of the other. It lasts for only 8 seconds instead of 16, but it heals you for twice the amount. So
Getting double the heal in half the time. That's
exactly, yeah. And so my thought process was, if this heals me for 1,000, and I took the other morph 10%, it would basically mitigate, 1,100 damage. Whereas this heal, it's twice as much, so it basically mitigates 2,000 damage. And another reason why I like this is it leaves bodies on the ground more consistently. A lot of necros use skills that require bodies to be on the ground, and this does a pretty good job of it. I also have obviously some bow skills on there. I got Acid Spray, Magnum Shot. I have Lethal Arrow on there now, but most of the time I'll just run Poison Inject. Got Blast Bones on there, of course, and I'm using the Goliath Ultimate on the front bar. And also, I'm very choosy of which bar my skills go on, because I'd like to take advantage of as many of the necro passives as I can. And on the back bar, I have the Summoner's Armor. I'm using a Lewd, which I think is a great skill, especially with all the damage that I can soak up on this necro. I think Elude, the 20% damage reduction for 40 seconds, okay? Which is a long time.
huge.
Yeah, and again, that's being efficient, like you were speaking about earlier. You use one global, you use, stamina once, and you get this for 40 seconds. And a lot of things in this game are AoE, and I feel like people might be missing out on that. A lot of ultimates are AoE, a lot of skills are AoE. So 20% damage reduction on a lot of stuff in the game is a lot.
And it's basically 20% damage reduction against Templars.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. I don't think they like it much, but I do. I also, right now, I have Deaden Pain on the bar. I don't know if I'm going to keep this. Sometimes I'll use, what is it? Mortal Coil. Sometimes I'll use the Purge. But for now, I'm just trying to see how this works out. I have Elemental Drain, obviously, with the Batishran staff. Skeletal Archer also provides a body, and it actually does pretty good damage. Normally I'll hit people for maybe more than my Stone Husk does with this guy. It's also passive, right? It's not something that I have to cast and waste a cooldown on. He's doing the damage no matter what I'm doing. Dodge rolling, healing, line of sight, it doesn't matter. He's out there doing some damage. So
all right, let me ask you about that skill real quick, because as a non-necro, non-stamina player, anytime I see a necro out in Imperial City who's got the archer or the skeletal mage, I always kind of look at them as like a free meal. Like that's a PvE guy. Let's go get him. So what is that skill providing you that's valuable, that apparently as a non-necro player, that I feel like I'm probably missing out on, because I always try and target those guys first?
I understand where you're coming from. I feel the same way. Whenever I see a little pleb out there with an archer or a mage, oh, all right, I got this one in the bag, no problem. But again, like I said, he's doing damage while I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing, right? And it's basically just a dot, and he could take different angles on people, or he'll drop a corpse and I can use that.
Yeah, I suppose the corpse and the kind of constant dot pressure is pretty nice. Is he able to body block? Like, are you able to attack him? I'm not even sure.
I don't believe you can.
Okay. So he's kind of similar to like the Nightblade's Shade in that way, I guess.
I believe so, yeah. But don't quote me on that. I could be completely wrong. I don't know. I don't know anything about this Necromancer. I just play it.
Let's move on then. Let's dive into the CP a little bit. I want to see, obviously, with the new CP tree, that it's probably not terribly important to go through everything. Yeah, I was gonna ask what are kind of like your top picks for like the damage tree, like the blue tree. What are the ones that kind of jump out at you as kind of the most important for your setup here?
Sure. For this particular setup, I use Thaumaturge and Biting Aura, which gives me 10% damage on my dots and on my AoE. And obviously Blast Bones is AoE, but all the tethers in the game are considered AoE and dots. Okay, so I'm getting the 10% on top of another 10%, and then the Necromancer passive, the Rapid Rot, I believe it's called, gives me 15% dot damage. So, basically Batishran and Stone Husk are double dipping on this. I am using Duelist Rebuff right now. I'm actually just testing it. I don't normally use it. Normally what I would use is the, Backstabber? Yeah. Gives you crit damage on enemies that you're flanking, which I guess I'll go ahead and just say it. Any of your AoEs are considered like my Blast Bones, even though he goes and runs into the target face on. It's still getting that crit damage percentage because it's AoE. I guess the game calculates like my guy hit him from behind or hit him from all around.
That's crazy, man. For two reasons. Number one, it's crazy that works and that you found that, but it's crazy that you just shared it.
Yeah. I expect a few more people to be using that. And then basically everything else is just kind of pick your poison. They're all kind of self-explanatory. There's not a lot of options to pick from, but one kind of an oddball thing I'm using is the Flawless Ritual, which gives me extra chance to apply magical status effects since I am using the Vatishran Destro, which does all three elements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got some points into healing taken. I got my crit resistance.
So you've got the crit resist. That's a slottable for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think what we'll do is on the screen here, we'll put up so you guys can actually see a little easier what the slottables are that he's running for this build. So take a look at those. If you need to pause and go through, feel free.
I've messed around with Juggernaut a little bit, which I'll probably do a little more testing on. But I think that's pretty much all I've messed with so far with this new setup. Obviously, you know, I get the cost reduction on some of my base skills.
What do you use for your Mundus?
Ooh, that is also armor. Yeah, I like feeling comfortable taking damage, so I stacked as much armor on this guy as I could. And that's the reason why I'm almost capped right now in medium armor. And also, the way healing and armor and the damage that you're taking works together, the more armor you have, the more valuable your healing becomes, right? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
It's basically like you're healing for more, but you're not.
Yeah, the lower the amount of damage you take, the more valuable your 1,000 tick of a heal is worth. I think that's all the questions I have for you on the build. We'll leave some gameplay here at the end so you guys can see the build in action a little bit. But yeah, that's all I've got for it. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we wrap this up?
That's all I feel like sharing.
All right, guys. Well, again, I'm Sinnfullduck. That was Zeromaz. We're talking about his Stamina Necromancer build. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more ESO content here on the Zeromaz channel. Enjoy the clips here at the end, and until next time, take it easy.